Good morning. How are you today? I got a new microphone after my 10-day video challenge. They had recommended a few changes to improve videos for everybody participating in the group. So I got this little microphone here, and you can tell me if you can tell a difference in the sound. I hope so. Today we are going to be talking about, again in the news, having the 10 people killed in the spas in Atlanta. And also, I know there were a number of people murdered in Boulder, Colorado. And I believe I have done a video on this before. This is a little bit different information, but we are going to focus on how do we talk about these things with our children. It is really, really hard to do. And again, I listen to a podcast, you know me and my podcasts. And there were two people, Christine Koh, who I've actually seen in a masterclass, and Nicole Chung, who is a writer for Slate. And they are specifically talking about anti-Asian racism. And I think the information here applies to any kind of racism or really any difficult kind of situation out there in the news. So there are 4 pointers I am going to talk about today. One is the importance of having conversations around these topics regularly. So it shouldn't be something that we avoid, even though it is so uncomfortable. However, we need to have ongoing conversations about difficult topics. So you might start by saying, do you remember that time we talked about? Or do you remember? Or some other kind of sentence starter that you're comfortable with to bring back a previous conversation. And that's a good way to get started with the conversation, because sometimes we just have trouble getting started. Secondly, with our children, we don't know what they've encountered at school or elsewhere. Open up the conversation and ask what experience have you had with racism or bullying, cyberbullying, or that you are aware of maybe with classmates. I think we would all be surprised at what our kids have witnessed, experienced, encountered. So just open up the space for them to share their experiences. And then you can ask them, how was that for you? How was it handled? How did that make you feel? And ask just some follow-up questions from whatever they share with you. Another one is that as parents, and I know I'm guilty of this now, even in conversation, is difficulty finding the right words on how to have these uncomfortable situations. So one thing they didn't talk about in this podcast, but I think is important, is just own it. Just say, you know what, this is really hard to talk about. I'm worried about saying it correctly, getting my words right, but the conversation is so important. I want to have it with you. One of these two people talked about that they have conversations sometimes at bedtime when it's dark. And you don't have to make eye contact with your child if the subject's uncomfortable for you. I know I used to have conversations with my kids in the car. I know we're not in the car so much these days, but that is also a helpful place to do it. Or if you're doing something together, if you're making a dinner and you're cooking and you're in the kitchen together, that is a great opportunity to have a difficult conversation. And again, not having to make eye contact through the whole conversation, just finding a different setting can sometimes make these conversations a little bit less uncomfortable. And then another point that I thought was really interesting to bring up is that as parents, we often talk about, let's say your child's experienced cyberbullying for something. We often talk a lot about punishing the bully, punishing the person who did the racist act. However, as we have learned, that punishment usually doesn't change someone from becoming a prejudiced person to someone who is not racist or not prejudiced anymore. Punishment, yes, sometimes punishment needs to take place for sure, but that is not going to necessarily change someone's mind. And it's really through education and conversation. So explaining to our children about the importance of educating, having conversations, and again, ongoing conversations are much more beneficial in changing the minds of those who may have acted out in an inappropriate or horrible, tragic way in our schools and elsewhere, that again, it's just really important to educate. So I'm not saying that if somebody committed a horrible crime, they should not be punished, so don't misunderstand me. But I'm just saying in cases of cyberbullying, a child will get punished. And there are consequences which are important, but that's not what the crucial part is in preventing these and having it from happening again. Again, it's about education, teaching others, sharing our opinions is much more fruitful in changing people's minds. So I know these conversations are having to be had so frequently with just all the violence in our world and mass shootings. So I just know that I appreciate any helpful hints that I can have. And so I hope that you find these helpful as well. So may we not need to have one of these conversations for a very long time to come, but just in case, there you go. And I hope you are all well. Take care. And until next time, bye.